the verdict with me is not quite in on charter schools as of yet, because it was this broached during this last session of the legislature. I think Minnesota was the first state in the union to enact a charter school law. Since that time, 39 other states have enacted charter law legislation, not including the District of Columbia, which has done so. So there's 41 that have laws on the books, and not all of those states are implementing their charter school law. There are a lot of questions that I think there needs to be answers to relevant to charter schools. How do families interact with charter schools? Today they interact in public schools through site-based decision-making processes, and I think we have made great strides in Kentucky with the Kentucky Education Reform Act that was enacted 20 years ago. And so I think that puts us out in front of a lot of these other states that may have charter schools and that may even be looking at charter schools, because we have such an aggressive approach to how we educate our young people today. One of the areas of concern that I have is the area of segregation of students, and I do not mean racially segregation of students. I'm talking about academic segregation of students. Cherry picking, call it whatever you will. If charter schools will recruit only the brightest and most talented students in the school systems out there today, it gives me concern, and that's what they could do. It gives me concern that they're taking a very value-added element out of our public school system, and that's the brightest and youngest and talented people. That those students that might not be as advanced, if you will, as those students, it takes away a learning process, a learning curve potentially from those students that might be able to learn from those that are more advanced. So that's that's part of the concern that I have over the charter school issue. I'm sure there are some very positive aspects, but I think given the fact that we did not, and I've been invited to several seminars since then that have been held, I think, by Representative Brad Montel from up in central Kentucky, and my schedule has not allowed me to attend. And this is not a partisan issue, it's a bipartisan issue, as I stated. We're talking about the education of our young people. So I think it deserves some very comprehensive review by our legislature and by the state school authorities. So the verdict didn't quite end on my position on it. We're one of 10 states that have not adopted some type of charter school legislation. And I noted the other day, and I forget what state it was, it made its way into the paper, where charter schools was creating some real problematic issues in that state. And so, does it do damage to public education and how we have funded public education? Those are questions that need to be answered. And I think, as I've stated, and I don't mean to sound redundant, but Kentucky has been a model for other states to look at when it comes to how we have modified teaching of our young kids, elementary and secondary levels, with the Kentucky Education Reform Act. I think that speaks well in and of itself that we are on the right track.
I know that the discussion was propelled a good bit by the Race to the Top application. Do you, with that now out of the way, and Kentucky's missed out on that, do you anticipate the discussion continuing, or
obviously I would like for us to continue to discuss the Race to the Top issue and possible future funding. I'd like to know, there are those that would say, well, you didn't have charter schools in the loop, and that's the reason. I just don't think that. I don't buy that. I don't believe that was part of the process. May have been part of the process that was used as to why we did not receive the money, but I just don't buy the fact. I think that our advances in the Kentucky Education Reform Act, with the Kentucky Education Reform Act, should have given every reason for us to have qualified for additional federal funding for education.